Within the fortress of the self, a storm often rages, unseen by the world. They sought a state free from the tyranny of uncontrolled passions. The path to apatheia is a lifelong journey, not a final destination. It is the ongoing endeavor to live more wisely, more virtuously, and more serenely each day. In a world filled with constant stimuli and pressures, this ancient Stoic ideal offers a timeless and powerful guide to cultivating an unshakable inner peace. The question remains not whether it is possible, but whether we are willing to undertake the work. What disturbance will you choose to address with reason today? This was not a cold detachment, but a profound inner equilibrium, a quiet strength born from understanding, not from emotional suppression. Imagine a mind like a still lake, reflecting the sky perfectly, untroubled by ripples of anger, undisturbed by storms of anxiety. This ideal, they believed, was attainable through reason and virtue. Reason, the guiding light, illuminating the nature of our impressions. Virtue, the unwavering compass, directing our actions towards the good. They called this state of serene imperturbability by a specific name, a word often misunderstood, mistaken for its pale imitation: apathy. Emotions, like rogue waves, crash against the shores of our inner peace. But its true meaning is far richer, deeper, and more empowering. It speaks not of emptiness, but of a profound fullness of being, a mind unburdened by the weight of distressing emotional disturbances, where judgment is clear and perception is unclouded by passion. This is the essence of what the Stoics termed apatheia, a state of tranquility achieved through wisdom and self-mastery. Not an absence of feeling, but an absence of overwhelming turmoil. Emotions are acknowledged, understood, but not granted dominion over us. It is the freedom to respond to life thoughtfully, not reactively, to maintain inner composure amidst the inevitable storms of existence. We seek shelter, a calm harbor, but often find only temporary respite. This is the promise of apatheia, an unshakable inner citadel. Let us explore how this profound state was cultivated by seekers of wisdom. The journey begins with understanding the architecture of our own minds, how impressions become beliefs, and beliefs shape our inner world. The Stoics offered tools not for demolition, but for careful reconstruction, to build an inner landscape resilient to the harshest emotional weather. Apatheia is not a destination quickly reached, but a path diligently walked. It demands awareness, discipline, and a commitment to rational thought. This ancient wisdom offers a timeless key to modern anxieties. Unlocking this state means reclaiming sovereignty over your inner experience. Is tranquility a fleeting dream or an achievable state of being? Join us as we delve into the profound Stoic concept of apatheia. Apatheia, a term originating from ancient Greek philosophy, particularly Stoicism, is often misunderstood in modern language. It is crucial to distinguish it from apathy, which implies indifference, a lack of feeling or emotional suppression. Apatheia, in its Stoic context, refers to a state of mind free from disturbing passions, such as anger, fear, or excessive desire. The Stoics, including figures like Seneca, Epictetus, and Marcus Aurelius, viewed apatheia as a high ideal, a state of being achieved through rigorous philosophical practice and the cultivation of virtue. It wasn't about becoming emotionless robots, but about transforming destructive emotions into healthier, rational responses. The goal was to experience emotions like joy or caution in a measured, appropriate way, without being overwhelmed or controlled by them, thereby maintaining mental clarity and peace. The pursuit of apatheia is fundamentally linked to the Stoic understanding of the cosmos and human nature. They believed in a rationally ordered universe, and that human flourishing, or eudaimonia, comes from living in accordance with nature and reason. Disturbing passions arise from false judgments about what is good or bad. By correcting these judgments through reason, one could naturally attain a state of serene imperturbability, or apatheia, becoming a calm observer and participant in life. So apatheia is not emotional detachment in a negative sense. Rather, it is a positive state of mental freedom. It is the freedom from the inner turmoil caused by irrational fears, anxieties, and cravings. This allows for a more objective perception of reality and more virtuous actions. Imagine a warrior who feels fear but is not crippled by it, acting courageously due to reasoned commitment. This embodies a step towards apatheia, where feelings are present but don't dictate detrimental behavior. This state of calm strength is achieved by understanding that destructive emotions are symptoms of mistaken beliefs about the world, particularly about what we can and cannot control. The Stoics propose that by refining our judgments and focusing our efforts on our own thoughts and actions, our inner world, we could achieve this profound tranquility, irrespective of external circumstances. This is the core promise that makes apatheia a compelling philosophical pursuit. Central to attaining apatheia is the rigorous application of reason. The Stoics taught that our initial reactions to events, called phantasiae or impressions, are not inherently good or bad. However, our assent to these impressions, the judgment we attach to them, is what gives rise to emotions. For instance, seeing a large dog bark is an impression. Judging it as dangerous and feeling fear is an assent that can lead to passion if unchecked by reason. Reason acts as a filter or a discerning faculty. It allows us to critically examine our impressions before we form judgments. Epictetus urged his students to challenge their impressions. Appearances, wait for me a little. Let me see who you are and what you are about. Let me put you to the test. This pause, this moment of rational scrutiny, is vital. It creates a space between stimulus and response where wisdom can intervene. By applying reason, we can distinguish between true and false judgments. A false judgment might be, losing my job is a catastrophe. Reason would challenge this. Is it truly a catastrophe, or an unwelcome event that also presents new opportunities? Is my well-being entirely dependent on this specific job? This rational reframing helps to moderate or even dissolve the distressing emotion associated with the initial impression by correcting the underlying belief. The Stoics developed logical frameworks and arguments to aid this process of rational examination. They studied logic not merely as an academic exercise, but as a practical tool for living well. Understanding fallacies, syllogisms, and the nature of propositions helped them to dissect their own thought processes and identify errors in reasoning that led to emotional disturbance. This mental discipline was considered essential training for the soul. The ancient philosophers pondered this, searching for an unshakable foundation. Furthermore, reason helps us align our individual will with the universal reason, or logos, which the Stoics believed governs the cosmos. Living in accordance with nature means accepting the natural and rational order of things, including events outside our control. Reason allows us to understand this interconnectedness and our place within it, fostering a sense of acceptance and reducing frustration with the unfolding of fate or destiny. This rational self-analysis is not a one-time fix but a continuous practice. Marcus Aurelius, in his Meditations, repeatedly reminds himself to scrutinize his thoughts, to break down events into their constituent parts, and to evaluate them objectively. Say to yourself in the early morning, I shall meet today ungrateful, violent, treacherous, envious, uncharitable men. All of these things have come upon them through ignorance of real good and ill. Through consistent application of reason, emotional responses become less reactive and more considered. The goal is not to eliminate emotions, but to transform them. Fear might become prudent caution. Anger might be transmuted into a focused energy for justice. Overwhelming desire might become a gentle preference. Reason helps to sculpt our emotional landscape into one that supports, rather than undermines, our tranquility and virtue. This process of rational discernment is crucial for understanding what the Stoics called preferred and dispreferred indifference. Things like health, wealth, or reputation are indifferent to our core moral worth and happiness, which depends solely on virtue. But they can be preferred if obtainable virtuously. Reason helps us pursue them with detachment, understanding that their presence or absence does not determine our inner peace. Ultimately, reason serves as the pilot of the soul, guiding it through the turbulent waters of life towards the calm harbor of apatheia. It's a commitment to clear thinking, to seeing things as they truly are, stripped of the emotional colorations projected by our unchecked judgments. This clarity is not cold or sterile. It is the foundation of a warm, stable, and resilient inner peace, allowing for genuine connection and effective action in the world. The Stoic emphasis on reason, therefore, is not about denying our humanity, but about fully realizing our human potential for wisdom and emotional equilibrium. It is a call to cultivate an inner governance where reason presides, not as a tyrant, but as a benevolent guide, leading us towards a state of unshakable freedom from inner disturbance, which is the heart of apatheia. The Stoics had a nuanced view of emotions, or passions. They didn't consider all feelings problematic. Instead, they focused on those excessive, irrational emotions that disturb our inner peace and arise from faulty judgments about good and evil. These include distress, fear, lust, excessive desire, and delight, excessive pleasure over perceived goods. These passions were seen as diseases of the soul, rooted in ignorance. According to Stoic psychology, a passion is not merely a raw feeling but a complex event involving an initial impression, an assent to that impression, and a judgment that something external is overwhelmingly good or bad. For example, intense fear of public speaking arises from the judgment that social disapproval is a terrible evil, and that one is likely to encounter it. This judgment, they argued, is flawed, as true harm can only come to one's moral character. The Stoics distinguished these disturbing from Apatheia, or good feelings. These are rational, moderate emotions experienced by the sage, the ideally wise person. They include rational joy chara over virtue, rational caution eulabeia regarding moral errors, and rational wishing boulesis for good. These good feelings are consistent with reason and virtue, and thus do not disrupt apatheia but are in fact expressions of a well-ordered mind. The process of transforming passions involves re-evaluating the underlying judgments. If I judge that losing wealth is a terrible evil, I will experience distress when facing financial loss. But if I, through reason, come to see wealth as an indifferent preferred nice to have, but not essential for my virtue or happiness, then its loss will not cause such profound disturbance. My response might be disappointment or concern, but not soul-shattering despair. They observed the relentless dance of desire, fear, joy, and sorrow. This understanding of emotions is empowering. It means our emotional turmoil is not an inevitable consequence of external events, but rather a product of our interpretations and beliefs about those events. By changing our beliefs, by aligning them with reason and the Stoic understanding of value, we can change our emotional responses. This puts the locus of control firmly within ourselves, which is a cornerstone of Stoic practice. Consider anger, a common and powerful passion. The Stoics saw anger as a temporary madness, arising from the judgment that one has been wronged and that revenge is a necessary good. Seneca wrote extensively on anger, arguing that it is always harmful and never justified. Instead of anger, a Stoic would aim for a firm, reasoned response to injustice, focused on rectifying the situation if possible, or enduring it with dignity if not. Similarly, excessive desire or lust, in the Stoic sense of craving for external things believed to be essential for happiness, is seen as a source of constant agitation. If my happiness depends on acquiring a specific possession, status, or relationship, I will be anxious until I get it and fearful of losing it once I do. Apatheia involves recognizing that true good lies in virtue alone, thus freeing oneself from such dependent cravings. The Stoic approach is not to suppress the initial involuntary physical reactions we might have: a racing heart, a knot in the stomach. These are apatheia, or first movements, natural and unavoidable. The crucial step is not to assent to the faulty judgment that typically follows these physical sensations. One acknowledges the sensation, then consciously chooses a rational interpretation and response, preventing it from escalating into a full-blown passion. Therefore, the path to apatheia concerning emotions involves a deep re-education of our value system. It requires constantly reminding ourselves what is truly good, our virtue, our rational choices, what is truly bad, our vice, our irrational choices, and what is indifferent everything else, including health, wealth, reputation, pleasure, pain, life, and death. This re-education gradually reshapes our emotional landscape. By understanding emotions as products of judgment, the Stoics offered a revolutionary path to inner peace. It's not about being unfeeling, but about feeling rightly, experiencing emotions that are aligned with reality, reason, and virtue. This nuanced understanding is key to unlocking apatheia, allowing us to navigate life's challenges with a calm mind and a steady heart, free from the tyranny of disturbing passions. A cornerstone of Stoic philosophy and a critical tool for cultivating apatheia is the dichotomy of control. Epictetus famously begins his Enchiridion with this principle. Some things are within our power while others are not. Within our power are opinion, motivation, desire, aversion, and in a word, whatever is of our own doing. Not within our power are body, property, reputation, office, and in a word, whatever is not of our own doing. This distinction is not merely an intellectual observation. It is a practical guide for living. The Stoics argued that our peace of mind is shattered when we try to control what we cannot, or neglect what we can. Frustration, anxiety, and despair often stem from investing our emotional energy and sense of well-being in outcomes that are ultimately outside our direct influence, like other people's opinions or external events. By focusing our attention and efforts on what is truly ours, our thoughts, judgments, intentions, and actions, we gain a sense of agency and tranquility. We cannot control if it rains, but we can control our preparedness and our attitude towards the rain. We cannot control another person's anger, but we can control our response to it, choosing reason over reactivity. This internal focus is liberating. Applying the dichotomy of control means regularly asking ourselves, is this within my power? If the answer is no, then the Stoic response is acceptance and adaptation. This is not passive resignation, but an active, rational acceptance of reality. Amor fati, or love of fate, as later articulated, resonates with this, embracing events as they are, understanding that they are part of the larger, rational order of the cosmos. Could the human spirit transcend these powerful, often disruptive currents? If the matter is within our power, our judgments, our efforts, our moral choices, then that is where our full energy should be directed. The Stoics emphasized meticulous attention to one's own character and actions. This means working on our virtues, examining our intentions, and ensuring our actions are aligned with reason and justice, regardless of the outcome, which often depends on external factors. This principle helps to reframe challenges and setbacks. If I fail at a task despite my best efforts, the dichotomy of control reminds me that the effort was mine, but the outcome was not entirely so. Instead of succumbing to frustration, I can analyze my efforts, what I could control and learn, without tying my self-worth to the external result. This builds resilience and protects inner peace. Practicing the dichotomy of control requires constant vigilance and honesty with oneself. It's easy to slip into worrying about externals or trying to manipulate outcomes beyond our reach. Journaling, a common Stoic practice, often involved reviewing the day's events through this lens. Where did I misplace my efforts? Where did I correctly focus on my own responses and actions? This practice fosters a profound sense of inner freedom. When we genuinely internalize that our happiness and tranquility depend on our inner state and not on the whims of fortune or the actions of others, we become, in a sense, psychologically invincible. External events can still cause pain or pleasure, as indifference, but they cannot touch our core well-being, our apatheia, if we maintain this focus. The dichotomy of control is not an excuse for inaction or indifference towards the world. Rather, it clarifies where our action is most effective and meaningful. We should strive to improve what we can influence, our communities, our relationships, but do so with the understanding that our primary responsibility is to our own moral and rational integrity. This allows us to act with courage and conviction, without being destroyed by potential failure or opposition. By consistently applying this powerful distinction, We gradually withdraw our emotional investment from the uncontrollable and reinvest it in the domain of our own choices and character. This shift is fundamental to reducing anxiety, anger, and despair, paving the way for the unshakable inner peace of apatheia. It is a practical strategy for navigating the complexities of life with wisdom and grace. For the Stoics, the ultimate aim and the sole true good is virtue. Apatheia, while a desirable state, is largely a consequence of living a virtuous life. Virtue is not an abstract ideal but a practical excellence of character, expressed through four cardinal virtues: wisdom, Sophia; justice, dikaiosine; courage, andria; and temperance, sophrosyne. Cultivating these is the direct path to both eudaimonia, flourishing, and apatheia. Wisdom, or phronsie/Sophia, is the ability to discern what is truly good, bad, and indifferent. It involves understanding the nature of reality, including the dichotomy of control, and applying reason to our judgments and actions. It's the foundational virtue that guides the others, allowing us to navigate life skillfully and make choices aligned with nature and reason, thereby reducing the internal conflicts that disrupt peace. Justice involves acting with fairness, honesty, and goodwill towards others, fulfilling our duties to society and humanity. The Stoics believed we are all citizens of the cosmos, interconnected and obligated to mutual support. Treating others justly, even when they act unjustly towards us, stems from understanding our shared rationality and social nature. This reduces resentment and anger, contributing to inner calm. Courage, or andria, is not absence of fear, but acting rightly in spite of fear, pain, or difficulty. It means facing adversity with resilience and integrity, standing up for what is right even when it is challenging. This applies to physical dangers but also to moral challenges, like resisting temptation or speaking truth to power. Such steadfastness in the face of hardship fortifies the soul against disturbance. Some sought to numb, to suppress, to build walls against feeling. Temperance, or sophrosyne, is the virtue of moderation, self-control, and discipline. It involves mastering our desires and appetites, avoiding excess in all things: pleasure, possessions, even emotions. Temperance brings order and harmony to the soul, preventing us from being enslaved by cravings or impulses that lead to regret and agitation. It is about finding balance and living with a sense of propriety and decorum. The Stoics believed these virtues are interconnected and cannot truly be possessed in isolation. To have one fully is to have them all. They form a unified excellence of character. Living virtuously means consistently choosing actions aligned with wisdom, justice, courage, and temperance. This consistent moral compass, this unwavering commitment to the good, is what ultimately leads to a stable and peaceful inner state, apatheia. When our actions and intentions are consistently virtuous, we have nothing to fear from external judgment or misfortune, because our self-worth is grounded in our character, which is within our control. This realization drastically reduces anxiety and fear. Even if things go poorly externally, the knowledge that one has acted with virtue provides a deep sense of integrity and peace that cannot be easily shaken. Cultivating virtue is an ongoing process, a daily practice of making choices that reflect these ideals. It requires self-reflection, the study of philosophy, and the emulation of virtuous role models. Marcus Aurelius, for example, often wrote about the virtues he admired in others and sought to cultivate in himself. This constant striving for moral excellence is the engine that drives one towards apatheia. Thus, apatheia is not an end in itself, sought for its own sake in isolation, but rather the natural emotional state of a virtuous soul. It is the tranquility that accompanies a life lived in accordance with reason and moral excellence. By prioritizing virtue as the sole good, the Stoics found that inner peace followed as a welcome companion, a sign that one is living rightly. In focusing on what we can control, our character and our choices, and striving to embody wisdom, justice, courage, and temperance, we build an inner citadel that is impervious to the worst of fortune's blows. This is the Stoic promise, that a life of virtue is a life of flourishing and profound, unshakable peace, the essence of apatheia. To practically cultivate apatheia, the Stoics employed various mental exercises. One powerful technique is premeditatio malorum, or the premeditation of evils. This involves regularly contemplating potential misfortunes, loss of loved ones, health, possessions, or reputation. Not to dwell on them morbidly, but to mentally prepare for them and strip them of their power to shock and overwhelm us if they occur. By imagining these evils in advance, we rehearse our rational responses. We can ask ourselves, if this happens, how can I endure it virtuously? What resources, inner and outer, can I draw upon? This practice reduces fear of the unknown and reinforces the understanding that our true good, our virtue, cannot be taken away by external events. It transforms potential catastrophes into manageable challenges for our character. Seneca recommended ending each day by reflecting. What ailment of yours have you cured today? What failing have you resisted? Where can you show improvement? This self-examination, often done through journaling, is crucial. It involves honestly assessing our actions, judgments, and emotional responses in light of Stoic principles, identifying where we succumb to passions or fail to act virtuously, and resolving to do better. This daily review helps to identify patterns in our thinking and behavior that lead to emotional disturbance. It's like a physician diagnosing an illness and prescribing a cure. By understanding the root causes of our agitation, often faulty judgments or attachments, we can consciously work to correct them. This practice fosters self-awareness and gradual improvement, essential for cultivating apatheia. But the Stoics proposed a different path, not of emptiness but of clarity. Another exercise is to vividly describe external things objectively, stripping them of subjective value judgments. Marcus Aurelius would describe fine wine as fermented grape juice, or a purple robe as sheep's wool dyed with shellfish blood. This physical description helps to disenchant objects of desire or fear, revealing them as indifferent externals rather than inherent goods or evils, thus weakening their emotional hold on us. Mindfulness of impressions, as advocated by Epictetus, is a constant practice. This means paying close attention to our initial thoughts and reactions to events and immediately challenging them. Impression: you are just an impression and not at all what you claim to represent. This creates a mental space to apply reason before an impression solidifies into a passion-inducing judgment. It's about catching destructive thought patterns at their inception. Role modeling and contemplating the sage also plays a part. Stoics would study the lives and teachings of exemplary figures like Socrates or Cato the Younger, asking, what would they do in this situation? This provides a benchmark for virtuous action and a source of inspiration. Imagining how a perfectly wise and virtuous person would respond helps to elevate one's own responses beyond mere emotional reactivity. Engaging in acts of service and considering our duties to the cosmic city, humanity as a whole shifts focus away from selfish concerns that often fuel passions. By practicing justice, kindness, and cooperation, we align ourselves with our social nature and find a more stable form of satisfaction than that derived from fleeting personal gains. This broader perspective inherently calms the ego's anxieties and desires. The benefits of cultivating apatheia are profound and far-reaching, extending beyond mere emotional calm. One of the primary advantages is enhanced resilience. When our inner state is not dictated by external circumstances, we can face adversity, setbacks, and even tragedy with a greater degree of strength and composure. We bend, but we do not break, because our core well-being is anchored in our virtue. Apatheia also leads to improved clarity of thought and decision-making. When the mind is not clouded by disturbing passions like fear, anger, or excessive desire, our capacity for rational judgment is significantly enhanced. We can assess situations more objectively, consider consequences more clearly, and make choices that are more aligned with our long-term goals and values, rather than being driven by short-term emotional impulses. Furthermore, apatheia fosters healthier relationships. While it might sound like it leads to detachment, true apatheia allows for more genuine and stable connections. Free from the anxieties, jealousies, and possessiveness that often plague relationships, a Stoic individual can love and care for others more freely and generously, based on virtue and reason rather than neediness or emotional dependency. This allows for more authentic empathy and support. Apatheia contributes to a more consistent and reliable character. When our actions are guided by stable principles of reason and virtue, rather than fluctuating emotions, we become more predictable and trustworthy to ourselves and others. This inner consistency is a source of profound self-respect and integrity, forming the bedrock of a well-lived life, a life of purpose and meaning, as understood by the Stoics. Ultimately, the pursuit of apatheia is the pursuit of true freedom, an inner liberty that cannot be granted or taken away by external forces. It is the freedom from being a slave to one's passions, a slave to fortune, or a slave to the opinions of others. This inner sovereignty allows one to navigate the world with grace, courage, and a deep, abiding sense of peace, regardless of the circumstances encountered. In summary, apatheia is not an emotional void but a state of optimal emotional health, characterized by freedom from disturbing passions and alignment with reason and virtue. It is achieved through diligent practice, understanding and governing our judgments, focusing on what we control, and cultivating wisdom, justice, courage, and temperance. The rewards are immense: resilience, clarity, better relationships, and unshakable inner peace.